And good evening, everybody, and welcome to College Football Wraparound. It is a special edition where me and Colton, with Mike, of course, Colton, get back. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing really good. So tonight we are doing a special edition, which is we're going to be talking about our top 10 quarterbacks heading into the 2024 season. So what we're going to do, we're going to go from number 10 down to number 1 so that it gives a little bit more suspense about who our number 1 quarterback is. Of course, both of us have a list, and it is going to differ between how we believe. So Colton, um, all right, how excited are you for the college football season to be coming up?
I'm pretty excited. I would say this season isn't quite talent-wise. I don't feel like this season's as good as last year, but it's still gonna be a good season. It's be very different not having Nick Saban coaching this season, and certain players such as Caleb Williams not playing anymore. But it'll be a good year. It'll be entertaining to see something different.
I agree. Well, what I'm going to do, you're my guest. I'm going to let you go ahead and tell me who your number 10 quarterback is first. Also, before we dive in, if you haven't already, for my viewers, check out Colton's YouTube page. He's got a lot of good stuff. But other than that, let's get into his quarterback, number 10.
All right, at number 10, I have Jalen Daniels from Kansas.
Interesting. So, how come you got Jalen Daniels at number 10?
I feel like, as far as talent goes, I feel like he's just another like Bryce Young. Like, I feel like he's not going to translate in the NFL very well. If he even gets drafted highly, I can see him being like a fourth rounder or something, be a backup. But I do feel like, as far as what Kansas needs, Kansas, like, they have a bad track record of quarterbacks, and he's been their best they've had in a while. So I do feel like he's very good. And I just feel like he has an all-around good passing game. He can run. I just feel like he's talented.
All right. So my number 10 quarterback is Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Now, if you watch the guy, he is similar to Jalen Daniels. He can throw the ball pretty accurately. He's also able to get out and run with his legs. Just some stats from last season for Jackson Dart. He threw for 3,364 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and he was 16th in the country in QBR at 78.5. So that is a pretty efficient quarterback, if I shall say. He's going into his senior season. And, of course, if you didn't already know this, he started his career at USC. Mm-hmm. So Lane Kiffin, of course, has a pretty good quarterback right there in Jackson Dart.
Yep. All right, number 9?
Yep.
All right, at number 9, I have Will Howard out of Ohio State. I believe he was at Kansas State before. Yep. And I feel like he's underrated. And I feel like with the right system, which is Ohio State, the perfect system, I just feel like the kid's talented. I feel like, I feel like he could be a Heisman. I don't think he will, but with the right, they have such a good run game. Like, the play action games would be insane. This is essentially like the Giants when they had Saquon. Like, you don't expect the quarterback to do well, but I feel like he's going to do well and be put in the right situation for himself.
I don't disagree. I think he'll do a decent job for Ohio State. Good enough to.
And with Emeka Egbuka, he has potentially, might not, but maybe the best receiver right now, Emeka Egbuka. I just don't see him being bad.
I agree. Ohio State's going to be a really good football team. My number 9 is Drew Aller from Penn State. Now, this guy, I would say he struggled a little bit last season. There was a lot of optimism for him coming into last season, and he was good, but then again, he had some struggles if you really dived into his game. And, of course, they fired offensive coordinator. They got a new one this season. I'm going to be interested to see how he does. But this guy he has the ability to make some plays that you would see Patrick Mahomes in the NFL make. Like, he's just that good he can get out of the pocket and just make some of these most ridiculous side angle throws that you see Patrick Mahomes make. Just because I'm giving you some stats behind it, He threw last season for 2,631 yards, 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had a 73.7 QBR, which was 26th in the country. So he's a good quarterback. He's got a lot of talent. I think he just has to have that. I think this offensive coordinator that's coming in is going to be a helpful sign that could translate to maybe getting him up the Heisman race potentially.
Yeah, and also something to add. I feel like Penn State recently is they've had a little bit of a drought. I mean, not really, but talent, like quarterback talent wise, I feel like it's just really hard for them to find the right guy. And I feel like Drew Aller, how to pronounce it, I feel like he's the best they've had in a few years.
I would say he's definitely the best since Trace McSorley.
Yes.
Definitely.
Which isn't really saying much, but.
Right.
All right. Number 8.
Yep.
All right. I have Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss at number 8. He was your number 10, right?
Yep.
So kind of just reiterating what you said, he's extremely accurate. And he, like, people underrate how fast, like, not really fast, I wouldn't say, but he's a decent runner. I just don't think people, like, defenses understand how to really defend him correctly. I feel like it's kind of like Josh Allen, where you would think the play's over, but somehow he's going to get 10, 15 extra yards on top of that. So I do think he's a top 10 quarterback. But I had trouble finding where to put him because it's hard to rank him, but I think number 8 was the perfect position for him on my list.
All right. So my number 8, I've got Caden Salter. If you're not familiar with the name, you may be familiar when he came up in the transfer portal, but of course he opted out, so he's kind of got a little bit quiet as far as national attention, I would say. But this is a guy who really potentially could be the best quarterback in college football. I got him at 7. I think there's still a lot, or 8, I'm sorry. I think there's just a lot to still be proven with Caden Salter. Of course, being a quarterback playing in a non-group or non-Power 4 conference is going to it's going to make, to me at least, it puts him a little bit lower. But besides that, Caden Salter, I think, is a really talented quarterback. He's got a great arm. And he's, again, like a lot of these quarterbacks you're going to see, he has that ability to escape and get out of the pocket and make some plays if needed. Last season, he threw for 2,876 yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was 9th in QBR with an 83.7 rating. So this guy, just an incredible quarterback. He's a junior. So not only are you going to get him for this year, but then you can get him next year as well if you're Liberty. So he's definitely a key piece to that Liberty Flames football team, who's got a great coach in Jamie Chadwell. So,
And he very much could be the starting quarterback at a bigger, better team. So,
right.
All right. So my number 7 is Brady Cook out of Missouri. And like normally I would put him a little higher, but my biggest issue with Brady Cook is I feel like he is a non-conference quarterback. I feel like when playing against teams out of conference, he looked great last year. And then there's games that I just felt like in conference he could have been better. And I feel like this year he's going to have a better year. He's be really good. He could be a Heisman guy. But I just feel like I really just want to see him play better on the road and in conference games, especially with how tough the SEC is this year.
I agree. The SEC, and this is just how I feel, okay? Look, the SEC is a different gauntlet of teams that you got to go through. And
I mean, any of the big SEC schools like Alabama, Oklahoma,
right.
Texas, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, or maybe not Kentucky, but Missouri, LSU, Florida, like any of them, if they did not have to play against each other, they could be undefeated.
Right. And I do think, if you're really looking at it, in my opinion at least, 15 out of the 16 schools would potentially be, like, say you put them in, like, the Big 12, I think they would rule the Big 12.
All but Vandy.
All but Vandy. That's just my opinion. So, Brady Cook, I think that's a good spot. But my number 7 is Noah Fafita. He's from Arizona. Now, this guy, again, another great mobile quarterback, great passing quarterback as well. This guy, he was a freshman last year, really jumped onto the scene, and it had a lot to do with his head coach, which now he left to go to Washington to take that job after Kalen DeBoer went to Alabama. It'll be interesting to see how he adapts to Brent Brennan's system, but that's besides the fact. This guy, he threw for 2,869 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 8th in QBR at 83.8. So this guy, incredibly efficient quarterback. Really, I think he's a starting quarterback anywhere he goes. Big 12 play, it will be interesting to see because going to the Big 12 and seeing their schedule, it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that this season.
Okay. All right. Next up my list, number 6. I have a shocker. I have Shadur Sanders out of Colorado at 6. And now I understand he's a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. But I feel like 4 and 8 speaks for itself, honestly. If you're a Heisman level quarterback, you're not going to miss a bowl game. You're at worst, you should win at least 7 or 8 games.
Right.
To lose that many games, that tells me you're not a good leader. Either A, you're not a good leader, or B, you just aren't an impactful quarterback. And I feel like he will be better this season. And, he's going to be better because they have a better team, way more weapons. But I just still have doubt that Colorado is going to be a good team. I think they're going to be 8-4. And I mean, we go back and look at this later and be like, I'm dead wrong. They could be like the best team.
Yeah.
But I don't see Shadur really being better this season. He's going to have good stats, but I don't think the impact's there. And I feel like to be a great quarterback, you have to have good impact. So
right,
that's why he's 6.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And that's why when it comes to my number 6 as well, I would agree on that one with Shadur Sanders. And like you said, he's got a lot of talent. Don't get me wrong. He's got the arm. He can get out and make plays with his legs. The one thing I will say is he's not as willing as a lot of quarterbacks. He likes to sit in the pocket a lot. He's not as willing to get out of the pocket and actually make a play.
I feel like he's kind of like Cam Newton in a way. Not really, skill set wise. I just mean, go back and look at the Super Bowl when Cam Newton didn't jump on the ball to pretty much to win the game in the fumble. I feel like Shadur's another one of those. If he fumbles in a big play and he thinks he get hurt, he wouldn't jump on the ball either. And I feel like it's the same thing. Cam Newton was impactful, but at the end of the day, Cam Newton kind of messed his team up. I feel like Shadur's the same way, just with less impact.
Right. And so just get some stats for those out there. He threw for 3,230 yards, 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Granted that this team was a heavy passing team, didn't really run the ball all that much. And if we're really going to put him highly in our rankings, you got to go back and look at this guy has a 63.1 QBR. That is 56th in the country. So it's going to be a lot to take to see, can he really make his way up there? We'll just have to wait and see on that.
But, he's going to be in the Heisman race either way. That's not me being, mad or anything. I'm just saying it's Shadur Sanders to be in the Heisman race.
Which the Heisman, folks, here's what we're going to do this season. And just so that, because we're about to get to our halfway point with our rankings, what we're going to do here on Saber Broadcast Network is we're going to have a rankings of ourselves of who is the top player. We're going to do our own award. Colton, what do you think? We're going to do our own award and give who we think is the best player in the sport, give the award to.
What are you going to call it?
The Saber Broadcast Network College Football Award, maybe, until we find
Savory.
Until we find a better name.
The Cooper.
That'd be an interesting name. Either way, folks, that is something that we will discuss in later time whenever it gets closer. So, Colton, now we are down to number 5.
So my number 5 is Jalen Milroe from Alabama. And I feel like the same things that can be said about Shadur, you can say about Jalen Milroe. But I do think he's a better leader, and he has, he's had he had the greatest coach coaching him for a season, or I guess 2 seasons, and now he has one of the better quarterback coaches right now.
Right.
And look, he doesn't have the weapons most of these quarterbacks have. Like his best receiver compared to Travis Hunter, his best receiver is not that good. It's Jeremy Bernard.
Yeah.
So, I think all the odds are in favor of him not having a year, but it's just hard not to think that he's gonna have a good year.
Right.
Especially being coached by Kalen DeBoer. I just feel like, this should be an easy Heisman type season. He should have. If he improves on his running skills and his decision making, there's no way he doesn't have at least 500 yards rushing or way more. He could have another Jaden Daniels season from LSU.
Right.
He could have another season like that he had last year and be a sneaky Heisman guy.
Yeah. As far as Milroe, I'll get into it here in a little bit because he's a little higher on my list. Because my number 5 is Cam Ward. He's the guy that's transferring in from Washington State to Miami. Now, if you don't already know, this guy's a senior. He started his career in college football at Incarnate Word, which is, I believe, an FCS school. He made his way to Washington State, where he played, and he did okay. He did pretty good. But, of course, he's making his way to Miami, which is going to be very interesting because with a good coach like Mario Cristobal, they just needed a good quarterback. So Miami's going to be a pretty good team, I think. But that's besides the fact. Cam Ward, last season, he threw 3,735 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That is 65.2 QBR and 50th in the country in QBR. This guy, last year, of course, was a heavy passing team that he was with Washington State. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Plus, he's got a good receiver in Xavier Restrepo down there in Miami. I think if you're looking at Cam Ward, this guy is going to be incredible for Miami, although with Washington State didn't really pan out for a bowl game. But definitely I think he could be a really good quarterback this season.
Yep. All right. So my number 4. Now, here's another kind of shocker how low he is. I have Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon. And I have a lot of gripes with him. I feel like he's become overrated. He quickly went from one of, if not the most underrated last year, to the most overrated. It just doesn't make sense. Oregon went out and got him, and then they got another good quarterback, I believe, from UCLA last year. That's where he was. And now they have 2 good quarterbacks, and I feel like Dylan Gabriel just made a bad decision going there. I feel like his best decision would have just went to the draft now and just, fight for a starting QB job. At Oregon, I feel like you get a downgrade from Bo Nix, who, he's better rushing wise than Bo Nix, but the pass game's just not there. The decision making's not there. The system's very different. At Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel, strictly, it was quick. There was, no, break in between. I feel like at Oregon, it's just such a different system. I feel like he's going to struggle to adapt. I feel like the pass game at Oregon is more, it's more, centered. He's not going to have, one specific receiver to pass it to at Oregon because there's so many good ones. At Oklahoma, he had Jill Farouk, Nick Anderson. He didn't really have the number 1 receiver, where I feel like Oregon, he has so many receivers. It's just going to be so much harder for him to adapt.
Right. I also have Dylan Gabriel at number 4. Um, if you look at the stats last season, just to kind of point out what you were saying about Oklahoma, he threw for 3,660 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was fourth in QBR with an 87. So this guy, I will say this: if there's a team that I think could get a transfer quarterback and make them a Heisman contender, it's definitely Oregon. Because okay, you got to go back and look at Bo Nix when he was at Auburn and transferred to Oregon. This guy, he was kind of just like, I mean, people thought he was washed up. Bo Nix was not that great of a quarterback. Turns around, he's a Heisman contending quarterback at Oregon. So I think if you look at it from Dylan Gabriel's side, first off, when he started his career at UCF, I thought he did an incredible job. Of course, fast-paced system with Josh Heupel.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma did about the same kind of thing, fast-paced type of run and gun kind of play with Brent Venables. Now, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to this system in Oregon because it's not
fast paced at all.
It's not as
it's
fast paced.
It's slow.
Right. So I will say I think that's the one challenge for Dylan Gabriel, like Colton said. But overall, I think this guy is going to have a great season, and he's my 4th quarterback.
And he's sneakily a really good runner.
Right.
He's actually extremely fast. Was he not? I think he's faster than Jaden Daniels, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Anyway, number 3 for me is Carson Beck out of Georgia. So it's hard to put him. It's hard to rank him because I feel like he's just another Stetson Bennett. He's good, but I feel like he's just kind of confusing because I feel like some games he looks like a Heisman, some games he just looks like a Joe Flacco, like a bridge quarterback, just a guy there just to make everyone else look good. And I mean, he has maybe the best targets. I mean, like the most underrated. Georgia's just one of those teams where it's like no matter who the quarterback is, as long as they have good players around him, they're going to be good.
Right.
And how many games has he lost as a starter, to be fair? Like one? One. So it's hard not to make him a top 3 quarterback. I just would like to see him have more of a, maybe not Heisman, but more of a flashy season.
Right.
That's my biggest complaint. But overall, like he's probably the most underrated passer in all of college football. I mean, he has a really good arm. He can throw really far, but he's also, I mean, he's not really as mobile as some of the other guys, but if he has to, he can be. I just feel like Carson Beck's just one of the best right now. So
I will say this. I'm not saying that he's just like this guy I'm about to compare him to, but I would say he plays a little bit more like Joe Burrow in a sense where he's going to be more of a pocket passer. And then because both of them, if they have to make a play with their legs, they can make it. And so that's really where I think, like you say, Carson Beck. So my number 3 is Quinn Ewers, another guy that's more of a pocket passer first and can make a play if he needs to. So this guy last season threw for 3,479 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 78.3 QBR, which is 17th in the country. So this guy, he is, I mean, Texas had a huge jump last season, of course, making the college football playoff for the first time in the history of Texas football in the 14 playoff. And Texas was a great team. He had a lot of great receivers to throw the football to, especially Xavier Worthy. This season, the one fear that a lot of people have is that there's not that great of a receiver to really replicate Xavier Worthy. I'll say this: Isaiah Bond transferring in from Alabama is going to be incredible for Texas. But Quinn Ewers, definitely one of those guys that I think has a really great arm, and he's going to do great things this season, of course. I think also the fact that Arch Manning is his backup kind of pushes him to play even better, in my opinion. So that's number 3 for me.
And Arch Manning's definitely it's definitely pretty scary having that guy behind you, considering his family.
Right.
All right. So number 2, I have Caden Salter at number 2. And my thing with Kane Salter, I just feel like he's extremely. I just feel like if he was at a team like, I feel like if he was at a team like Colorado, I feel like he'd probably be the backup for Schroeder, just considering who his dad is.
Right.
But I feel like he's better than. I mean, he can out quarterback so many different other quarterbacks, and I feel like put him on a really good team that needs a quarterback. Put him on Ohio State. Ohio State's instantly number one in my opinion. So I just feel like he's super underrated. He's kind of like Dylan Gabriel. Like he's shockingly fast. Like you look at him, like you think. I mean, he's a little smaller. You think he can't really throw, but this guy can throw extremely far. He's fast. I just feel like he's an all around better quarterback than most of the other ones.
Yeah, like I said, Caden Salter. My one knock on him is that he just doesn't play not in the big conference.
But I feel honestly for me that kind of helps me put him higher because I feel like he has more to prove.
Right.
And I feel like for what he has proved, I think he's proved to me that he's honestly. I think the one thing I would change about my list, I'd maybe swap him and Carson Beck right now, but I don't know. I think he fits at number 2. He's maybe 2A and Carson Beck be 2B, but
okay. Yeah, so my number 2 is going to be Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Now, like Colton mentioned, he definitely has that ability to get out and run with the football, and then he's got a cannon for an arm. Now, accuracy is going to be the big question.
And offensive line.
And if the offensive line could give him some time, that's really the big question for this Alabama team. Personally speaking, I think Kalen DeBoer coming in, he can fix that quickly. Still, Jalen Milroe, he's really more of a threat using his legs, in my opinion. So this past season, he threw for 2,834 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He had an 80.5 QBR, which is 13th in the country. So I will say, back half of the season definitely was better for him, which you could tell the growth that he had.
Confidence
as well.
Not to butt in, but I feel like that Texas game really ruined, all the hype and everything for him. And then I think once he got past that Texas game, it was just, sky was the limit.
Well, also the fact that he got benched against USF, I think it lit a fire under him, and he played a lot better, not perfect, because there still was a lot of things he needed to work on in the offseason.
I think that Auburn game was the perfect demonstration of him because, he struggled a little, didn't look great, but, towards the end, you kind of saw he's pretty good.
Right.
Especially that last throw, even though I feel like it could have been better, but given the circumstance, they won the game. So
right. So Jalen Milroe is my number 2. All right, now, folks, we've come to the time where we are about to choose our number 1 quarterbacks.
All right. So at number 1, as much as it pains me to say it, Quinn Ewers from Texas is my number 1 quarterback. And overall, it's hard not to put him up there. I would say you said, was it Carson Beck you said was like Joe Burrow? I would disagree. I'd say Quinn Ewers is the closest thing we have to Joe Burrow in college right now. He's just a really accurate, good passer. If he can stay healthy, which I know he did last year, but he has had his injury problems. I feel like if he can stay fully healthy and have a good season running wise, I feel like Texas is gonna be hard to beat, unfortunately. And they do have a tough schedule, but compared to other SEC schools, I know they have to play Georgia somewhere in there, but other than Georgia, they should go undefeated. Should.
Right.
But it's Texas. They always have some stupid loss. But given the fact that if Quinn Ewers doesn't do well, which he will obviously do well because he has all that talent, one of the better offensive lines, there's no way Texas does not do well, and there's no way Quinn Ewers is not a Heisman quarterback. I would go as far as to say he's a top 3 Heisman right now.
All right. Now, my number 1 is Carson Beck from Georgia. Now, this guy, as we were mentioning, he has the ability to fit the ball into places that not a lot of quarterbacks in the college game can do right now. I think Carson Beck's the most pro-ready quarterback when it comes to that. And personally speaking, I think if you look at the past two starting quarterbacks for the Georgia Bulldogs, he's better than Stetson Bennett by a million miles, in my opinion.
I feel like he might be like a Mac Jones, not thinking of it. Like, just looks really pro-ready and good in college. Then NFL just doesn't turn out well. But, I mean, we're not talking about the NFL right now.
Right. So he threw for 3,941 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 86 QBR, which is 5th in the country. Also, keep in mind, he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, and this team wasn't a heavy passing team, if you want to be honest. It was a good balance because it's Kirby Smart's system. So it was more of a balance between passing game and run game because Georgia has great players all around the board. So Georgia, of course, is going to be a really good team this season, and they got, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the game right now.
All right. Good list.
Yeah. Of course, as you saw, we disagreed a little bit, but very good list of quarterbacks. Of course, there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that are pretty good in the college game, but this is just a short list of those. So, of course, we got more content coming out throughout the offseason of college football as – of course, August 24th is when college football returns, and that's going to be exciting.
That's not long from now. That's what?
I know. It's
4 Saturdays?
Today is July 31st, and we got under a month until college football starts.
Wow.
It's going to be a lot. It's going to be exciting, folks. Of course, as you know, August 24th, we will be here for Florida State, Georgia Tech. And, of course, college football wraparound is before that going into the game. So, of course, we got more content coming up and going to be exciting. So, Colton, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're going to hopefully get you back on for more content heading into the college football season. So, with that, thanks for watching, everybody. Goodbye.